Welcome back to Real Estate 101. I'm your host, Joe Terceira, and today we're going to continue our discussion on home inspections, specifically new home inspections and Tarion warranty. And I'm pleased to be joined once again by Allan Spisak of ACISS Home Inspections. Allan, welcome back to the show.
Joe, it's great to be here with you again.
So Allan, I want to start today's topic, and I want to talk a little bit about new home inspections and Tarion warranty. So as a buyer that just bought a new home with a Tarion warranty, why is it important to have an inspection done?
Well, Joe, this is going to surprise a lot of people, but the city inspectors do not actually inspect every part of every house.
Okay. And you want to go more into detail with that?
Well, let me just talk a little bit first about another option, which is what's called staged inspections before the home is finished. What we can do as a home inspection company is help you out with your new home construction and check those things that are going on during the construction process to make sure that they're done right before they get covered up. So those things are going to be items like the footings, the foundation walls that get covered with dirt, the ductwork, electrical, and insulation that all get covered up by drywall. So it's another good reason to get your house inspected during the construction process.
Okay, so should a buyer do you think it's a must that they have their home inspected while it's being built?
It's certainly an option. Not everybody chooses to do it, and often some builders don't let people do it.
So let's say a house is built. What do you typically look for, and isn't it all covered under warranty?
Well, Joe, let's first start off with what is covered by warranty. So Tarion provides a 1-year warranty to make sure that the house is free from defects, it's fit to live in, and it meets the Ontario Building Code requirements. Now, there's items that aren't covered for 1 year that the builder should be supplying documentation to the homeowner. So those would be extended warranties on items like your heating, cooling, your windows, roof. Those items can have extended warranties by the manufacturer or by the supplier. So most people don't know that they should be getting those extended warranties from the builder as well.
Okay, and what other things are covered under warranty or not covered?
So Joe, for the 2-year Tarion warranty, what's covered is water penetration, items where leakage would occur through roofing, windows, doors, foundation. Also, defects in materials around caulking, the windows themselves, the doors, defects in the distribution system of heating and electrical, so your ductwork, your furnace, your air conditioning, and also any building code violations that they find are only covered for 2 years. That means if in your 3rd year you find something that was missed under the building code, the builder doesn't have to fix it.
And what about the 7-year?
Yes, Joe. The structural component of the home is only covered for 7 years, up to 7 years. And that is only a major structural failure. So if you have your foundation collapse, your roof collapse, your floors collapse, or major deformation in the structure, that's covered for 7 years.
Okay, so when you say major, one thing that obviously that I find a lot obviously when I show properties to buyers, are cracks in foundation walls, especially the homes that are 2-3 years old. Would that constitute as something major or no?
Great question, Joe. A lot of people ask that. And cracks are actually only covered for 1 year if they're greater than 6 millimeters or they leak. So greater than 1 millimeter, if they leak, up to 2 years for leakage, as I said, that's the cracks that have to be fixed. And those aren't considered structural cracks in most cases. If there's a crack that you can put your hand in or fingers in, more than likely that would be considered a structural crack. But those common cracks that we see in foundations, those are very typical. Builders don't have to fix them unless it leaks or they're greater than 6 millimeter.
So, I mean, all this stuff that you're talking about, it's actually pretty informative stuff. Most people don't know anything about. What else do you look for in a new home?
Well, Joe, what we do is we go through the home with the buyer at the PDI section, that's the pre-delivery inspection, and we check all the criteria that the builder must meet under the Tarion Construction Performance Guidelines. That's a 268-page document that spells out the specifications that the builder has to meet in terms of tolerances as they build the home. Next year, it's going up to a 297-page document.
Good. We're trying to cover all the angles of buildings. Perfect. So, Allan, give us some examples. Let's start and let's talk about a little bit about fit and finish.
Yes, Joe. So what we do is when we go through the home with the buyer, we help them to determine the quality of work. So in those construction performance guidelines, the most common criteria is deficiencies that you'd see from 1.5 meters away. So scratches, defects in the paint and drywall, but also we're looking for things such as the fit of the doors. They must be square and plumb and not rub. Windows must be able to be opened freely. Absolutely no blemishes or marks on the finished surfaces such as hardwood and cupboards, because if you don't catch those on the PDI, the builders are going to tell you that those were caused when you moved in. You made your own in.
Okay, and what about other things that are not, that are not very common?
Yeah, I'll tell you, we find things that aren't very common. I've been on brand new houses where the shingles were blown off the house. Up in attics where we found, believe it or not, Joe, the roofers roofed over holes in the plywood.
Okay, and what about structural supports?
Well, Joe, again, not always that common, but it does happen, because the sub-trades that are going in after the people do the wood framing, they go in to put in the electrical, the duct work, other ancillary services, and unfortunately, sometimes they're cutting structural components. So the floor joists, there are tolerances for cutting holes in floor joists, but you're not supposed to notch them out at the bottom. And the open webbed, or the webbed wooden I-beam type of joists that are very common these days, you can cut out 1/3 of the depth of the joist, but it has to be as per the manufacturer's instructions. So if a subtrade has gone in, and unfortunately, again, another wow, I've seen a fellow go through and just knock a hole through with a hammer. That's not a saw cut, and that doesn't meet the manufacturer's specifications.
Okay, and what about attic insulation? Does that fall in with what you do?
Yeah, it does, Joe. As part of our inspection, we do go up and check in the attic. And if you think about it, how many people when they buy a new house would look up into the attic? And I found things such as the wind has blown the insulation away from the house, away from the edge of the house, and it's piled up like a snowdrift near the middle of the attic. Another house we went into, apparently someone lost their car keys or cell phone because someone took the insulation and spread it away down the middle of the house looking for whatever they lost.
So clearly there's a lot of issues that you find with new homes. Are there any inspections that you perform after the PDI?
Yes, Joe. Very common is what's called the 30-day inspection. And again, it's part of the Tarion inspections that you have to submit your claims to Tarion and the builder. So in the 30 days, before the 30 days is up, we can come and go through the whole home and help you again identify any of these criteria that are in the construction performance guidelines.
And is there anything after 30 days?
Yes, Joe. Probably the most important is the 1-year Tarion form that they must submit. And in each subsequent submission to Tarion, the person has to carry over any deficiencies that haven't been corrected. So again, we can come before that 1 year if we haven't helped them out with the 30-day and help them compile a full comprehensive list to get submitted. And a good thing about calling us is we remind the people they have to get that 1 year comprehensive list in 30 days before the 1 year is up.
Okay. So for today's final question, Allan, do you have any other tips or advice for new home inspections?
Yes, Joe. If people are buying a house that isn't quite 1 year old, okay, a lot of people and realtors don't know that in order for the new home buyer to carry that warranty over, someone has to pay a fee to Tarion.
So to transfer it?
Yeah, exactly. It's a transfer fee. Because what was happening was a lot of people were purchasing homes before they were built. They'd buy them. Maybe they wouldn't quite live in them, but they'd flip them and try to sell them within that first year. And there was a lot of paperwork for Tarion to do, you know, carrying over all the warranty items. So now Tarion imposed a fee to help cover all the costs for all of that paperwork. One more point I want to make about that is a very tricky timeline situation. If someone is buying a house before the 1 year, but they're moving in after the 1 year, again, it's very important to call us because we're going to help make sure that that list is compiled for Tarion, and we're going to help you to understand that the list we compile has to be submitted by the present homeowner to Tarion on behalf of the buyer.
All right, so there you have it. It's a great idea to have your new home inspected by an independent inspector. If anybody has any more questions or would like more information on your brand new home inspection, they can get in contact with Allan Spisak at ACISS Home Inspections. I'm your host, Joe Terceira. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.